This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by the Echobend Pictures co-founders, Zubin and Ryan Turner, whose work includes Me, Myself, and the Void, Nicki Minaj's Super Freaky Girl music video, and Virgil, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, guys.
Nice to be here.
Thank you.
I guess give me a bit of background of Echobend. Like, how did it get started, and what do you guys focus on?
I think, well, it started because we started off as writing partners, and then organically through working together, there was an opportunity that came about with the Facebook Watch show. The two of us realized that we covered over a lot of the cracks of film between like production, post, writing, directing, and that between the two of us was a really smooth, we'd done enough films to know that this was a really smooth process. And so we said, well, why don't we start a company that continues this process and continues our ability to work together. And I don't think either of us really understood what that would mean or what the sacrifices it would take. But it very much was an organic kind of like, yeah, this is great. Let's just see what this could mean like in the professional setting, like in two of us starting a production company.
Fine. Now, because you guys have done a lot of commercials and music videos, but you also have started moving into feature films here. So what are some of the things you learned from like music videos or commercials that you utilize in your features now?
I think for me, I think it's the idea that like nothing is impossible. It's just about how much you really want it. Because I think the good thing about music videos, especially big budget music videos, is that at least for us, even if there's going to be, $1 million budget and 200 people on set, we're still given, 6 days or 5 days to prep it. And, we'll have 300 VFX shot. It will be like a full on feature production, but we're given no time, but we're asked for the craziest things in the world. And you can't do that is not really like an option. So you have to just find your way into making something happen. And you have to make it happen at the highest level, because it's not going to be one of those things where it's like, hey, 500 people watch this. Sometimes it's 50 million people, 100 million people, 1 billion, 2 billion people watch it. And so your work is going to be judged. And I think Ryan and I talk about it in features, we talk about it in everything, this idea of like no caveats, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're doing a short film or something a little smaller, and you can kind of defend things to your friends, oh, we didn't have this or we didn't have that, and people understand that. But when art goes out into the world on like a broader scope and scale, you don't get to sit there, and when people have a technical issue with it or it doesn't reflect the best, you can't go to each individual and explain, well, actually the crazy thing was we only had 2 days, this and that. Like, no one gets that story. So all they do is they judge your work based on what it is, not based on the excuses you had. So we've had to become really good at, no matter what the situation, money, time, all the crazy things, is try to create work that has no caveats, no matter what the circumstance. And that translates, I think, to where we're going in TV and film, which is like, it's that same situation, but now magnified on a much larger scale.
I think what attracted me to color correction was the fact that we were like the next stage of cinematography. And the creative side was huge, trying to understand what was wrong with an image, how to balance it, trying to understand how to let the tools do what you want them to do. Where else can the technology go? What else can we do? I'm very interested in trying to mold the image and create the best look possible. And whatever tools are out there, you want to try and latch onto them. I'm Eric Whipp, and this is my course on color correction.
Well, and what's interesting is you talk about like the crazy things that occurred. If I'm not mistaken, like when I looked at Me, Myself, and the Void, you guys shot that in 2021? Or
We did.
Yeah, so
It was our
COVID?
first. Well, it was not only that, it was the first year of our company.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we technically formed in 2020, but the pandemic, we were working on our website like the day the pandemic hit, and we're like, well, this is terrible timing. And so the company had started, but we didn't really get off and running until I would say in my head, it really felt like it started in January of 2021 when we moved into our first office. And we shot Me, Myself, and the Void in November that same year, which to me, production companies will shoot features in their first year. That happens. I think the thing that's crazier is knowing that we started with no money, no clients, and no celebrities backing us. So we started the beginning of that year shooting like $7,000 music videos, $5,000 music videos. And by the end of the year, we were shooting our first feature, which that feels like, a big hurdle, knowing that, again, it's not like, oh, we'll just take our huge bankroll and do this. It was like we had to inch our way into everything, and every job that we got, Ryan and I had just worked sweat equity, and we just reinvested every single dollar. We just tried to live off of almost like side hustles just to keep giving ourselves more runway to pour into the infrastructure, whether it's buildings, whether it was equipment and buying our cameras, whether it was people, because our company is not a two-man band. It's like way too expansive for a couple people to shoulder, even on sweat equity. Yeah. And so we just had to keep reinvesting. And so we had to keep figuring out how to give ourselves more runway to make this work. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing to flag from doing such a wide, I think a lot of companies, and rightfully so, start with a specific lane. They'll be like, hey, we're the comedy commercial, we're the virtual production car company, or we're we do only indie Westerns, shot in Indiana or something. It's like there's people.
I like that. I like that company idea.
Yeah. That's my side hustle.
And that's how Echobend ended. They went and formed a new company.
Right.
Shoot Westerns.
But the specific, for us, we were starting across a wide berth of everything, right? And I think it was an extension of what we both experience in freelance. I mean, Zubin comes from big budget music videos. I come from like spending my own money on my projects and then convincing other people to give me money to make projects, which is like, those are very different facets, because I'm raising Indiegogo money, asking people for $50 or $100 a pop, and then like on another facet, it's like you have unlimited money, but you have 5 days to get a stage, to get and build an entire city, but how much is it going to cost? So it's like, I think what we find is really helpful is to do both sides of those productions and to really see how they can feed each other and make those efficiencies across. What could save you $500 on the $7,000 music video saves you $200,000 on like a couple $1 million movie, right? So it's like, that's where we've really found these efficiencies. And I also think like I almost think there's like two distinct industries. There's like the people that are like, I don't have any money, and it's literally no money. Or the people are like, I don't have any money, I have just 1.5 million. Do you think you can get this movie done for that? And like, if you connect those people with the people that like are literally have no money, where you're like, well, my alternative is $0. 1.5 million is a lot more money than $0. I could certainly do a lot more than that. So I think we've kind of found these efficiencies in connecting these people and like building a team that's both scrappy and able to efficiently use a lot of budgets, because that's the thing. It's like you'll work with people that like when they get a lot of money, it's just like they're like, well, I don't know what to do with it, and you're like, well, there's a reason that they're asking for that much, is because there's a certain experience and a certain level and caliber that they're expecting, right? It's like if you're giving an wardrobe budget for a big budget movie and you don't have fitting and all that, the things that you need, they'll be like, wait, what's going on? But if on an indie movie, you're like, I'm using your closet, we need to go buy a shirt at Target. Like, that's pretty normal, right? So it's like, but I think those skills are easily translatable. It's just more about like learning the way things go. And that only happens through experience. But like, it's just a very fascinating dichotomy of different ways that people do films. Right. And so I
was going to say, also
ahead.
with dovetailing quickly off of what you said, I think that's something that I've said it a few times. I think something that like really it simultaneously sucked and was like core to the way that our company came about was kind of going again to the fact that we had no money. It ended up being actually like the best thing for us, because whereas I think most production companies looking in hindsight, I'm like, there's a reason everyone said you have to start with millions of dollars. Otherwise, it's just like impossible to get anywhere. And I realize why. It's because you're a bank and this and that, and you need so much support. But at the same time, because we started with like absolutely nothing, especially like props to Ryan, like we couldn't buy our way into situations and we couldn't buy our way out of situations. So we had to like lean on really the only thing that we had, like one of two things we had going for us. One was like a technical craft, but I really look at Ryan, I go like his network. That was it. It's like, hey, when you have nothing, you lean on your friends. And that really is what Ryan was saying, that indie scrappy world. It's like we leaned on that hard and we continue to lean on that because our friends are really talented, but they're willing to go with us on the big things, the small things. Their talent extends in every direction.
Mhm.
And as a result, I notice now that we're able to do things that other people would say like, oh, you can't do. And I think that the thing that we were talking about, doing the big and the small simultaneously, most companies that do huge budget things, they do not even entertain the idea of a $10,000 music video. It's because they go, this is a bad financial move. And the answer is, it is a bad financial move if you only look at that one video. But like Ryan said, there was weeks that we were doing like a $700K thing and a $7,000 thing in the same week.
Mhm.
And it was funny because we would, be lighting with a few tubes, we'd be lighting some car shot, right? With a DP, a first AC, and like a gaffer, and there's like 6 people on set, and it looks beautiful. And then a few days later, we're on this huge set, and there's 150 people, and we're spinning in circles, going like, "Oh, this is impossible! You can't light this thing. It can't be done." Blah blah blah. And I kind of turn and I go like, "Look, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but all I know is that me and a couple film school students just did this shot beautifully for $500. So I'm sure we can find some way." And they go, "Well, I guess technically, if you did it that way." And I'm like, "Yeah, I thought so. I thought we might be able to put our heads together." But I realized it's that distance. It's not a distance in like a technical distance. It's that usually when you get really big, it doesn't happen over 1 second. It happens over years. So you kind of start distancing yourself from the scrappy approach over time, and you kind of forget how you used to do it because you haven't had to do it that way in a long time. And that distance is what makes it seem untenable. But it's, if you're doing it at the same time, you realize that's all just the same. It's just like more people or a few more toys. But the general process is like, here's a subject, there's a camera, there's some lights, there's some people, sometimes a lot, sometimes a little bit. Practically, it is the same thing. Like it's not as wildly different as I think we like to pretend it is when you get comfortable. That's where it's comfort. That's what.
Well, and
that's
I
the
also
difference.
think, like, I think when I was working on stuff, it was always the lower budgets were frustrating in the sense of like, okay, well, we're not making as much money, but it would be like, here's this crazy thing we have to figure out how to do for nothing. And then that was the exciting thing, was the creativity behind the challenge of how do we make this look like $1 million when we have, 50 or whatever it is.
Right.
So I have to ask, where did the name Echobend come from?
Basically we had when we were writing together, like when I mentioned that we're meeting up every day, like working on stuff, we were meeting up in Echo Park near Mohawk Bend. So that's like the basic combination. The reality is, like, as we're starting the company, we're like, we got to have a name, and there's always this kind of weird, like, oh yeah, of course that's the name in hindsight. But as we're crafting it, I think we were spending like a month just sending, like, I'd be like, what about this word? Like this word has this meaning, or this is like this has triple, it's just like these definitions. And then Zubin came up with it. And I think when we heard it, we were like showing, we'd tell, like, I told my now fiance, but my girlfriend at the time, I was like sending her stuff. She's like, I hate it. It's like, okay, all right, well, I guess not that. And then I think this is one of those words when we were like, all right, well, we like this. And we were kind of like feeling it out. And I remember she was like, that's great. And then the more we'd say it to people, we're like, oh, it's a really good, because it's like also a name you can spell. Like if I'm telling you, go to echobend.com, you're going to be able to type that in and go. Like there's a lot of facets of what a name I think should do. But yeah, we ended up settling on that and haven't really looked back since.
I think it's actually funny. The process of the name is like a microcosm to me of like the filmmaking, the best things that have happened for us in like the filmmaking process, which it didn't come out of like deep planning, deep thought. It's like art where someone good, they in hindsight they go, oh, all the meaning, this and that, but the reality of why something was is actually sometimes like inane, mundane.
Mhm.
And ours was just like a moment of exasperation. When I was talking with Ryan, we said Echobend. We're like, oh, what does it mean, this and that? And I remember talking with Ryan, I'm like, I bet you if we were starting a tech company, we certainly wouldn't have called it Apple. You certainly wouldn't call it like Google. Like they're silly names. Like, who, why would you do that? But in hindsight, I'm like, I bet you now it looks like a great, it makes all the
Yeah.
sense in the world. And so I was like, one day people are going to look back at this name. It's going to make a whole lot of sense. Right now, who cares? You like it, I like it, good enough. And that's the same with film. It's like, that's how it happens sometimes.
Well,
You're like,
before we got on this, you guys talked a bit about mentorship with and mentoring people. So what is it? Tell me how Echobend helps mentor young people.
Well, I mean, recently, keep in mind we're a year 2.5 of the company, so we're still building a lot of things. But I would say like I recently went to a festival called Nifty, which is a Young Filmmakers Festival. I think you have to be under 25 or 23 or something, but like, and I went there and I met all these young filmmakers and I saw these wonderful films, way better than my student films because the tech and everything, and also the storytelling prowess. And also I think just the depth of, there's something, I'm an optimist, so I'll say that first, but like I definitely feel like the youth of today have experienced so much more and have greater empathy as a whole, greater understanding, greater acceptance, and a lot more to say. And so then at least when I was watching like stuff that we were making when we were students, but like, so I went to watch these films and I was like, wow, that's really, there's some really beautiful films. Everybody was there from a very wholesome, like, oh, we just got together, we made this, this project, and there's these beautiful, beautiful projects. And I'm like, that's the core of what filmmaking is. And through the industry, when you spend enough time, you'll be told that that's not the way that's supposed to be. You'll be told that, no, you have to go through this channel and this channel. You have to be approved by this person and this person. I remember like when I first came to LA, everyone was like, don't tell everyone you're a director. Like if you're an editor, just get the work as an editor and then you can get, and I was like, no, I'm going to tell everyone I'm a director because that's why I'm here. I'm not here to edit. And I was like, yeah, I'll edit for money, but I'm going to tell the person I'm editing for that I direct. And I'm going to show them the video that I just shot that weekend, because that's what my stubbornness probably would have gotten more editing jobs had I not done that. But so I think one big thing that I feel really called when we're starting this company is I wanted to create a place that I wish I had when I first moved to LA. And a lot of people, I think, and there's wonderful people that don't, but there's a lot of people in this industry that come from a scarcity mindset, meaning like, I'm a director, I'm never going to share my process with you because that would show that I'm a fraud or show that I'm still figuring it out as I'm going. Right. And so I was always looking for a mentor or different people to learn from. And I had some wonderful people along my path that I really had to seek out, but not everyone has that opportunity or gets lucky enough to meet great people along the way that can take them under their wing, right? You're completely at the mercy of, I mean, you could be an assistant to somebody for 10 years and they could be like, nah, I'm never moving you up. And now I'm retiring, peace out. And you're like, wait, I just wasted 10 years hoping that you're going to let me get further. And now you've just completely left me. And I've lost 10 years of my life. Like I've known a lot of people that have experienced that. So we try to come from like an abundance mindset, coming from a place of there's enough job, enough work for everybody in this industry to be working and doing cool things and playing make-believe together. And like, if you're a director and I'm a director, we're not competing. We should be building each other up. We're not, yeah, maybe you get a job one time and I get a job the other time. And maybe if I'm getting more jobs than you, we have to kind of break down, okay, what is it that's not getting you the jobs and how do we get you more jobs? And it's more of a collaborative build-up process. And so I think from that perspective, my dream for the company as a whole is that like we're able to have a pipeline for young, hungry people. And that's the skill we're looking for, is not whether they're actually good at film, whether they're how good their reel is. It's more about, are they hungry and are they willing to learn and grow? And if they plug in, if they have that, I call it like the fire, and they say, if you want to be hot, surround yourself with fire. So it's like, if we have these young people with fire and they're basically coming into the company and they just want to learn and they can, navigate production, post-production. We have a music and publishing arm, and like find out where they plug in, and then we can foster that and build them up. And I'm not trying to be like, hey, wait, I spent 10 years getting to where I am. Like, start your clock now, kid. I'll see you in 10 years. It's like, no, if you're good and you're like hungry and you make a film that's incredible at year whatever, 0.01, the first month you make this amazing thing, great. Pass me by. Like, please go off and like make the amazing things, make your studio feature. Like, we'll help you get there, because I don't think that there's any harm in someone. Again, everyone's running their own race. And like, if I can help someone run their race faster, even if it passes me and whatever, which hopefully that is, because any mentor, the apprentice should pass the mentor, otherwise you're not a good mentor. So I'm like, I really believe that, I really believe in this idea of we can teach everything we know. There's not much, like in spite of the smoke and mirrors, like you can learn all the technical craft of things relatively fast. It's more about the politics and relationships that take a lot more time and experience. So yeah, I think that's what we really feel called to do in the company. And over the long run, we want to really keep an open door for anybody that's really hungry and wants to just grow and learn.
Which is how I think that's different. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want to jump back to a part, like we were talking about the creativity of lower budgets, like having to be more creative around things. What would you say was something you guys worked on that had a really low budget, but was creatively fulfilling because of the challenges?
Gosh, there's so many. Oh my gosh, I almost have to like refamiliarize ourselves with our work.
I'm sure this would be your answer.
Going into battle.
Yeah. So our first project we did, like one of the first projects that we did, that was ours. We ran a lot of, and that's the thing, like production companies, like Zubin said, they're mainly just banks and places that get sued and write a lot of paperwork. Like they're not, everyone's like, I'm going to start a production. It's going to be some friends. We're going to grab some cameras. It's like, no, you're a production company. You're writing checks and you're doing paperwork. And you're liable for everything that happens.
Yeah, that's the fun of it.
But when we started it, we were like, okay, well, me as a director, I was like, well, I probably want to get another commercial under my belt to like be able to sell myself better. And so Zubin, I had a friend who has a company and I went to him. His name's Matthew Hussey. And Zubin and I and our friend Jameson, who runs his film department, like film section, we all got in a call and we're like brainstorming, like, what could we do? And what would you get excited to put money towards? Right. And very little amounts of money, right? It's not like you'd be putting like a real budget. But we had full creativity and we came up with this idea of, because he's kind of a life coach of sorts in a dating environment. So we're like, well, dating in the modern, people think of dating as a battlefield. So what if it was a commercial that was involving like, medieval warfare? And then he comes out and he's like, what are you guys doing? And it reveals that they're just going on a date. They're not going to battle. And so, yeah, but like, that was a perfect example of what Zubin's talking about, because we came up with the creative. Brian Force is this amazing human that I'm friends with from college who owns a lot of medieval paraphernalia. And basically I was like, hey, if you do this, like this project can happen. If not, like we probably won't be able to do it. But
literally
like,
could not happen.
Could not happen.
Yes, he had the location, he had the medieval stuff, he had the tent, he had the weapons, he had literally like I couldn't even imagine how many hundreds of thousands of dollars we would have had to spend if we didn't know specifically Brian. Like I don't even know how you would do that. And
so he's just the most amazing person. Can't speak highly enough about him. Because he's also an actor, he's stunts, he does everything. And he really loved the idea. It was COVID, no one was shooting anything. So we're like, yeah, let's come shoot at the outside of the house. We'll build a tent, we'll do all these things. There was a cinematographer that I'd known, Max Schmiga, like from college. I'd never worked with before, but I've been wanting to. So I was like, hey, you went to college with me, Brian's in college with me. Like, can we do a little reunion of UC Santa Barbara and like shoot this little silly commercial? We went to like casting director friends and like pulled some favors there, got some amazing cast. I do a lot of comedy stuff. So there's some comedic people. I was like, oh, they'd be perfect. I'd shoot them a text and you kind of just organically get this. I feel like what ended up being a really cinematic commercial together just by like relationships and the transparency, right? Like we're not pocketing some extra money. Like we're just like, what can we do for this budget? And then we finished this thing and I think it's something we're all proud of, like, and something that can showcase like, wow, this is what happens when everything's working right. The set was super fun. The vibes were great. Zubin has a magical ability when he's producing to like really make you feel like even if there is no money, it never feels like it. I don't know how he does it, but it's truly a magical skill. And I think it comes from his ethos in general, and just, you'll know when you're working with sketchy people that like they're just sitting on piles of money and then being like, oh, you need that? Okay, I guess I can find some extra dollars. And you're like, come on. Like, whereas I think with Zubin, there's a transparency and honesty, and like many people that I know, especially mine, are like, he's the best producer they ever worked with, because he truly is amazing at what he does. So that's the thing, I think. And then when we get to set, it's just a great fun shoot. There's no drama, there's no egos. It's just making a great project.
I think it actually, like Ryan, I guess I'll echo that back to Ryan. I think the reason that like a lot of the things work is because both of us at least are very committed to getting all the resources onto the screen. And I think it's very much like a long-term play for us, because I understand why people do, as producers, especially in line producers, hold back money, because everybody wants to make money. You know, everyone wants to feel like they can pay their rent and maybe one day afford a house, maybe not in LA, because who can possibly afford that? But like in other places, theoretically, you could buy nice things. But for us, it is just a long play. And we keep telling ourselves, I always think to myself, I'm like, every dollar that we held back that didn't make it to the screen, that made it a little bit better and a little bit better, the quality of the product could have gotten us another thing and another thing. And down the road, you don't know the butterfly effect of what could have been if you had held it back. But every dollar that I feel like we don't put into our productions probably could have very well over a lifetime cost us $100,000 for every $1 that we held back. Right. And so like for me, it's a very simple justification of why we always try to max out. We basically, Ryan and I were just looking to, how do we get just enough to survive? And every time we get $100, we have this nasty habit of spending 110. But we always justify it going like, it leads to the next thing and leads to the next thing. And the only thing I can say is that in hindsight, it has led to the next thing. So until we make some sort of catastrophic mistake, I guess we're probably going to keep doing it. But yeah, I guess it's less like, yeah, that's my reason for not holding on to anything, because it's just not to me, it's like a short-term play to try to sit on money and not put it on the screen. It's just, it's not long-term thinking.
And sorry to jump in, I know like we have a tendency to talk a lot, but
just a little.
There's I think that's a testament to what's happening in the industry as a whole. There's a lot of focus being put on the short-term gains, whether it's stock gains or immediate movies. It's like, oh, this is popular, so let's just like beat it to death, or like, or like, hey, we're just gonna pay people like trash because they love our company, and like, it's crazy, like, of course, if we were like a celebrity was like, hey, I'm going to charge people to be in this movie, but you get to spend time with me, people would pay the money. But doesn't mean just because you could, doesn't mean you should, right? It's like, there could be great business opportunities that morally or ethically are quite questionable. And it's like, I don't know how people can go home and like sleep at night when they know that they're telling people they have no money, but they really have millions of dollars like that they're holding back. I don't. And it's usually the people they're holding back from are the people that are the lowest rungs of the ladder that truly need that money. And I know, because I was like doing extra work, getting paid whatever, $32 for 4 hours of work to like get my groceries to pay for bills. Like, and I remember one time there was a guy getting a parking ticket across the street for $78 on our $32 job. So they got net negative $40 on that 4 hours of work. So it's like, that perspective is it's so important, I feel like, to constantly keep in tabs of, because it's like the people that really need the money, when you're like, I can't pay gas money for like the production assistants, you're like, come on, like $50. If you can't pay $50 to like 5 people or 10 people, you've truly not budgeted things right. Like, you've truly not moved this money around in the right way. Because like you said, what you're talking about with I need to make something like that for $50, right? That perspective, because like the second you have more money, you're going to want to thank the people that are helping you. You don't want to make sure that they don't lose money, and then hopefully that they actually make money. So I think that's the shift that I think hopefully can happen across multiple industries. But for that to happen, we just have to keep doing what we're doing and hopefully show that that's a model that actually works.
Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
What you got, Ryan?
Oh, you're going to start with
answers.
Guilty pleasure.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
I feel like guilty pleasure, it kind of implies that there's like a trash element to it, which is like, oh, it's terrible. I think, for my guilty pleasure is always The Office. Obviously not a trash thing. I find myself returning to it at least once a year, if not twice a year. And just a little thing I found was, and I then read an article about it. It's funny for anyone else who rewatches The Office or Parks and Rec or Friends or anything like that. There's a psychological reason that we do it, and apparently, and it makes sense, is that it's in this world, especially where like the paralysis of decision, where it's like, hey, there's now new on Netflix, 4,000 things. It's like, how could you even begin to start? And people return to the same content again and again because there's a comfort in it, and it feels like being with old friends. And it feel, when you're with old friends and you kind of already know what they're going to do, but it's like there's a comfort in knowing that when the world is going crazy, it makes a lot of sense why, especially now, people do return to that which they know, because everything is changing so fast. Oh my God, AI is going to take over the world, and Tesla's up, Elon's down, Bezos wins. It's like, it's so chaotic all the time that feeling in control and knowing the experience that you're going to get, it also makes sense why franchises like Top Gun or something like that, people, I think there's like a learning lesson in it for like content creators. And I'm not even saying it's a lesson to be like, now go and do that. It's just at least understanding why people return to the familiar is because everything is so chaotic now that just having the feeling of knowing what you're in for, there's a deep level of comfort. And I think people now are moving back towards that comfort because the world is getting so scary that it's like, I can handle a Pixar movie. I know what I'm in for. And it's not about even Nolan, even the ones that are pushing the boundaries. You understand how Nolan pushes the boundaries. If you go to a Tarantino movie, you understand, you know what you're in for. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, but you know emotionally what it's going to feel like. And I don't know. I find it very interesting. That's my spiel.
How about yourself, Ryan?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking a lot about this and what I've been really ingesting recently. And it's not necessarily TV or movies. It's been these YouTube videos, these like investigative journalist YouTube pieces that I've been all about, where it's like Sam Bankman-Fried, the documentary. And I'm like, oh, I want to learn more about FTX. Or like, why does Saudi Arabia, are they destined to fail in 50 years or something? Like the mega projects that they're building. So I've been really I would say that is somewhat of a guilty pleasure. Like I've been really getting into these historical and then investigative YouTube videos that are like 50 minutes long that I really enjoy, because I think I really gain. I think I know there's something I really love, which is like a passive learning. And when you do something over and over again, you'll be like, oh wow, I have this skill that I didn't even know about. And so like now I feel like I have this like wide breadth of maybe like just what do they call it, like cocktail hour thoughts or something, that I'm like, oh, did you know that Saudi Arabia in the year 2046, like I have these weird facts that just pop in my head. So I attribute that to these wonderful YouTube videos that I've been watching.
Well, thanks so much for letting me interview today, guys.
Yeah, Gordon, it's really wonderful to meet you.
Of course. Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com and of course on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.